The relay packet arrived on a Tuesday. I remember that detail because it was the day my clearance was finally upgraded to Tier 7, and I had spent the morning telling myself the promotion meant something. By noon, I wasn't thinking about the promotion anymore. My name is Marin Solis. For 11 years, I worked the Signal Integrity Division of Earth's Strategic Intelligence Directorate, a division whose entire mandate was to audit the galactic relay network for corrupted, missing, or falsified transmissions. Most of what we found was bureaucratic noise, duplicate routing tags, timestamp collisions, relay nodes that had drifted slightly out of synchronization with the central archive. 9 years out of 10, the work felt like auditing a library for misfiled books. Then came the Tharven packet. It was a navigational beacon ping, nothing more. Automated, low priority, the kind of handshake signal that every civilian transport broadcast every 6 hours as a matter of standard registry compliance. The ping was dated 9 months prior. It had been bouncing through secondary relay nodes in the outer Kalen corridor the entire time, unprocessed, because the primary node it was addressed to no longer existed in the network's routing table. The node had been deregistered, quietly, with no maintenance record attached. I pulled the beacon's origin identifier. Transport designation, THV Convoy Row, Vessel 17 of 31. Tharven Colony Convoy. Registered departure from Meridian Station, bound for the Cassivan Reach. 190,000 colonists. Families. Mostly agricultural engineers, infrastructure workers, teachers, children. The kind of people who went first so that somewhere livable would exist when the rest followed. There was no arrival record at Cassivan Reach. There was no incident report. There was no distress acknowledgement. No search and rescue filing. No insurance claim. No death notification to next of kin. There was nothing in the Galactic Relay Archive to suggest the Tharven Colony Convoy had ever existed at all, except for this one orphaned beacon ping, Vessel 17, bouncing patiently through dead secondary nodes for 9 months, because nobody had thought to scrub the tertiary relay tier. I checked the Veloon Dominion sector logs next. The convoy's route had taken it through Dominion-administered space for a transit window of approximately 4 days. The Dominion sector logs for that window were pristine, immaculate. The kind of immaculate that takes deliberate work to produce, because space is never that quiet. There were no anomalous energy signatures, no debris flags, no course deviation reports from any of the 31 vessels, no record of Dominion patrol contact, no customs transit stamps, which alone was a procedural violation, because every civilian convoy transiting Dominion space required a customs stamp. At the Veloon Outer marker, 31 ships, 190,000 people, 4 days in Dominion space, and the Dominion's official record showed an entirely empty corridor. I sat with that for a long time. Then I filed a Tier 7 intelligence brief, marked it immediate escalation, and sent it up the chain. I went home that evening, made tea I didn't drink, and sat at my kitchen table until morning. I was not thinking about what I could prove. I was thinking about Vessel 17's beacon, pinging faithfully into dead relays for 9 months, because the person who programmed that beacon's compliance cycle had expected someone to be listening. The brief reached the Strategic Assessment Council in 36 hours. I was called to present in person 2 days after that. I brought everything. The orphaned beacon, the routing deregistration with its missing maintenance record, the transit window with its impossible silence, the customs stamp violation across all 31 vessels, and a cross-reference I had built overnight showing that the Veloon Dominion had quietly purchased 3 new heavy ore processing platforms in the 6 weeks following the convoy's disappearance. Platforms whose acquisition cost corresponded closely to the market value of the colonist equipment manifest the convoy had been carrying. The council chamber was very still when I finished. The lead assessor, a retired admiral named Voskaren, a man I had never met and would never see again after that day, looked at the display for a long time. Then he said quietly that he wanted to understand one thing clearly. He asked me whether any of what I had presented could be explained by equipment failure, navigational accident, or relay network error. I told him no. I told him that equipment failure does not deregister the primary relay node the failed beacon was trying to reach. I told him that navigational accidents generate debris signatures that persist for years and that the corridor was clean. I told him that relay network error does not also produce a simultaneous purchasing record for 3 ore platforms at the entity responsible for the corridor. I told him that what I had presented could only be explained one way, and that the Veloon Dominion had relied on the assumption that no one would look hard enough at the tertiary relay tier to find Vessel 17. Voskaren nodded. He thanked me for my work. He told me the brief would be forwarded to the appropriate body for consideration. I was escorted out. I did not know, at the time, what the appropriate body was. I found out 8 months later, along with everyone else. The Obsidian reckoning was not announced. There was no press release, no diplomatic channel notification, no ultimatum transmitted to the Dominion's capital relay. 480 warships had been assembled in the Kalen Shelf construction yards. Over the preceding 7 months, deep in the outer transit lanes where Dominion sensor nets did not reach. The yards were military-grade facilities that had been quietly reactivated under a logistics contract designation that did not appear on any public procurement register. The shipyard workers had signed protocols, I imagine, were very clear about the consequences of disclosure. The Obsidian reckoning crossed the Dominion border at 0340 Galactic Standard on a morning that meant nothing to anyone except the people aboard those ships. There was no communication to the Dominion's border stations. The border stations were, within approximately 9 minutes of the fleet's arrival, no longer functioning. I was in my office when the first relay reports came through, routed to signal integrity, because the Dominion's relay network began behaving erratically as its hub infrastructure was systematically addressed. I watched the signal map. I watched the Dominion's relay architecture go dark, node by node, in a pattern that moved inward from the outer stations toward the capital, with the unhurried thoroughness of a tide coming in. The Dominion's capital relay station went offline 11 hours after the reckoning crossed the border. Their primary shipyard complex at Velundar, the facility whose acquisition records I had cross-referenced against the ore platforms, transmitted a final automated distress signal at hour 14. The signal was received, logged, and filed. No response was sent. What remained of the Dominion's fleet had attempted to form a defensive screen at the capital's approach corridor. I saw the engagement signature on the relay data before that node went silent too. It lasted 22 minutes. The Obsidian reckoning did not bombard civilian population centers. That is on the record, and it is accurate. What it did was remove, with complete thoroughness, every military installation, every relay hub, every shipyard, every orbital defense platform, and every governmental facility in Dominion space. It took 4 days. When it was done, the Valoon Dominion retained its planets and its population and nothing else. No capacity to project force, no communications infrastructure, no fleet, no government compound from which orders could be issued. Before the reckoning departed, its signals division transmitted a single data package to the Galactic Relay Archive. The package contained the complete reconstruction of the Tharven colony convoy's record. All 31 vessels, all 190,000 names. The route, the timeline, the evidence of deletion, and the evidence of what had been done to them. It was tagged for permanent, unalterable archival status. It would not be possible to deregister the node that held it. The data package also contained the full record of what the Obsidian reckoning had done, and why. The Dominion's name was written into the archive entry, beside every name on the Convoy manifest. I was asked, sometime after, whether I felt the response had been proportionate to the offense. It is the question people ask when they want you to perform doubt. I considered it carefully. 190,000 people had been killed and then erased, not just destroyed, but deliberately unmade from every record, so that their deaths would not require accounting for, and their families would not know where to grieve. The Dominion had gambled that an empty corridor and a deregistered relay node were sufficient to make 190,000 human beings simply cease to have existed. They were wrong about the tertiary relay tier. They were wrong about Vessel 17. They were wrong about what it means to erase someone from the record rather than simply killing them. Because erasure requires the assumption that no one is looking, and we were. The archive entry for the Tharven colony convoy is the most accessed document in the Galactic Relay Network's public index. It has been so every day since the reckoning returned. I still make tea I don't drink sometimes on evenings when the work sits heavy. I think about the engineer who wrote Vessel 17's beacon compliance code, who built in the 6-hour ping cycle, who trusted the relay network to be listening, who could not have known that the person finally listening would be sitting in a signal integrity office 11 years into a career that had mostly felt like auditing a library. I think about what it means that they trusted someone to look. We looked. That is all I have to offer them. We looked, and we did not look away.